You stay there.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
But if
you
I
gotta play
sit
it back,
here,
right?
Well, see how it's recording? Am I darker?
Yeah, but I can still see your face better. Yeah, you're
I
darker.
mean, I could see you.
Yeah, you can still see it though. Okay.
All right. Welcome everybody to David Talks. This is going to be a very interesting episode. I decided to bring a guest. Today's episode is going to start off by this. Do you guys believe in ghosts? What are your opinions? What happens to us when we die? As we all know, people out there, they've had ghost experiences. They've seen stuff from the corner of their eye without any explanation. And this is going to be one of those scary episodes that we've had. So I want to introduce you. This is my brother Jeffrey Schuler. He's had the most craziest ghost experiences growing up. And these are actually very true stories. You know, and you're talking to a guy, he's very detailed about everything, very observant. And I just figured, I wanted to bring him as a guest because the type of experiences that he's had are just stuff that you would see like in the movies. So I want to first start out, Jeff. What made you believe that there was a possible afterlife? Did you always believe in an afterlife or no?
So, I think what I would say is, growing up in the Catholic religion, of course, you're taught that, there is a God. You're taught that, Jesus is the Son of God, and that at some point, right, in our journey, that we will reconvene in the kingdom of heaven. So I've always thought that there is an afterlife. I didn't really know it to be true, that there was kind of this more of a waiting room per se. And that waiting room in my mind is kind of the environment where one would call ghosts or spirits kind of reside and exist. And I think for me, one of my first early experiences was with, of course, our grandmother's house, where I always had an unsettling feeling walking into the house. It was always dark, always cold. We would always go over there and visit, right? And it was just something unsettling about that house. Now, come to find out later on, what I was told by another neighbor in that entire area was that that neighborhood was built on Indian burial grounds. And I didn't get the sense around that neighborhood, only when we would walk. So our uncle would, my grandparents would always throw parties. Of course, you know this to be true.
Yeah.
And in those parties, we would always go on a walk. That was kind of the thing to do. And during these walks, we would pass what we called the witch's well. We had no idea if it was, related to any witch or, any haunt. But all we knew, it was a very scary well. And for all intents and purposes, it probably could have served as some type of way for that land to be irrigated and nothing more than that. But it kind of set the tone because we had to pass that before we started the walk along the canal. During that walk, it was interesting. It was me, it was Uncle Orlando, it was Mike, it was Lori, she was little, our sister, and Sean, our oldest brother. And walking along that canal, probably about 50 yards into that walk, across the other side of the canal, there was this shape, a very dark figure. The figure could be seen, at least the outline of the figure could be seen, because it was darker than the actual night around it.
Oh, man.
And what it looked like was almost a very large farmer with a hat who was sitting and fishing. And so my uncle had pointed it out to everybody, and it looked as if it were moving.
Oh, wow.
Others in that pack started running, including our Uncle Orlando, the adult, by the way, at that time, right? And left the kids behind. That's how scared he was. We ended up running back to my grandmother's house, and in that we started drawing pictures. So everybody was excited to draw the pictures of what they saw that night. Later come to find out that one of the neighbors along that canal, they mentioned that they would see an Indian walking around with what looked like a wolf, right? And they would see him kind of it was a spirit form, obviously. And you know, we did get some other little stories that would take place around that canal, but that was kind of a very scary experience, but not my first experience. My first experience was actually took place spending the night again at that same house.
Now, before we move on to the story, like, what do you think, right? Like, might have this now getting into this, like the house itself, right? What do you think could have caused this area to be very haunted, right? Including Abuelita's house.
Yeah, so, you know, nobody really knows that answer. But if you had to ask me, I would say that there are certain things within the environment that we call Earth that I think actually record some type of traumatic event that takes place within there, right? And there can be times where there is a perfect alignment of all of these different resources and elements that could either pierce the veil of an alternate dimension or possibly even look back in time, right? And those are kind of my thoughts on you know, why specifically certain areas. I mean, I hear all this talk about the Gettysburg, and you know, I've seen some videos around where you've got, you know, people are capturing what look and appear to be soldiers in spirit form, kind of carrying out what they would be doing as they were, you know, here on Earth. So
right. So even in that story, right, and not even knowing about this, and this was like at a very young age, how old were you when you experienced this? Your first
this exact event?
This exact event that you're getting ready to talk
I was
about.
Probably 10 years old.
Okay. And what happened? Tell us the story.
So, obviously, like any other little kid, they enjoy McDonald's, Happy Meals. And, you know, our grandfather was going in for some type of evaluation. He always suffered from, you know, heart issues or oxygen, low oxygen, things like that. And in this case, he was going to be evaluated, you know, for the night to kind of take a look at his oxygen levels as well as his heart. And I do remember our grandmother calling in, and she said, "Hey, why don't you and, you know, Lori, our sister, come up and spend the night, and we'll kind of just make a you know, a very cool night and day, next day out of it." And in that case, you know, the house always spooked me out. It was either cold or had very weird cold spots as you're walking through the house, and very, very just unsettling feeling. And knowing this, right, I wanted to say no, but I was coaxed with actually going to McDonald's and getting a Happy Meal. And so what kid would ever turn that down? No kid, right? So of course I said yes. And when I got there and I remember getting ready to go to bed, I completely regretted my decision. This was well after I ate that Happy Meal. Oh, wow. So I knew
I'm loving it.
I knew that I had already had my reward and regretted my decision. So before the lights went off, I kind of did a scan of the room to say, okay, what are these things that may come out and unknowingly, right, because things are dark, may scare or spook me in the event that I get up in the middle of the night. And I looked at a coat rack and I could see a coat on there. And of course I said, okay, this is likely something that is, you know, could pop up and say, hey, you know, this is kind of scary if I were to wake up from a dead sleep. There was nothing else in the room though. So as my grandmother, as she turned off the lights, I did another scan and acknowledge the different artifacts in that room that I already had, perceived that could possibly wake me up. As I woke up, I could see this and say, okay, this would be scary. So again, at that point, everything was baselined. I was ready to go to sleep, in which I did. I somehow got up, and I do remember the time because when I was sleeping on our grandfather's side of the bed, and I rolled over to the clock when I got up. And as I got up, I looked and I saw that it was 3:43 in the morning. Not sure why that time stuck in my head, but it's been stuck in my head now probably for the past 33 years. I looked back over and I saw what looked to be a woman's nightgown, and I could actually see the floral print within the nightgown.
Getting goosebumps.
And the nightgown itself kind of lit up like you would see the moon, right? With a bit of a haze, and that color lighting as well. I saw what looked to be appendages, and I said they are appendages because they were black and they were darker than the dark around it. I did not see any kind of facial features or even, a spot there for what could have been the head. But I definitely saw the dress and what appeared to be torsos. I couldn't see any legs because at that time, looking at it as you're laying down, the bed would have cut that view off. So it would have been basically been the dress, and as well as the arms there.
Now the arms were very solid. It was just blackness.
Yeah, it was
like
just
you could
black.
see any wrinkle on the skin and all that.
I couldn't. No, you couldn't see that level of detail. What you saw was just what was darker than the night around it.
Now the darkness that you saw, the appendages, like could you compare it to like somebody, like a shadowy person in the room, or was it more darker than a human shadow?
I would say it was darker than the human shadow.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So the funny thing about it is, like in experiences like this, right? I mean, like you have people that, like they experience something like that and they get different vibes. Like what vibe did you get from this? Was it evil? Was it,
No, yeah. So that's a good question. So
Yeah.
I didn't get the vibe that it was something evil.
was it curious?
I
was it just...
I was absolutely scared, but the vibe that it gave was more observing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Observing.
As if it were just watching, For what reason, I don't know, but it definitely did not feel evil in nature. And it definitely did not feel, though, like
Right.
it was familiar.
Right. So, in your theory, right, based on what this thing was, the way it was dressed, do you strongly believe it could have been like great abuela, or do you think it might have been something mimicking her? Or
Yeah, it's a good question. So, like I said, I instantly brought it back to our great grandmother, right, abuela, right, and because the only reason being is the dress, the nightgown, would have been a nightgown that she wore to go to bed. Now, going back to the sense that it felt as if it were unfamiliar to me, what I will say is, as I'm discussing this with you now, is while she was alive, I never got a familiar sense. So
Interesting.
it could have very well been her. I never built that connection while she was alive, so that in my mind it would have been somebody really close. We were never really close. By the time that I was actually mentally aware of who she was, she was in a state of decline mentally, right, and her health. So thinking through this now, it likely could have been her, because it was the same feeling I got when she was around as she was alive.
Right. So the funny thing about it is, we hear people that have had near-death experiences, obviously, right? And people that pass on, right, they always report immediately going into a realm, right? Which obviously is the Catholic and the Christianity religion, right? Right, either a heaven or a hell or in purgatory, right? Now, the funny thing about it is people that have had those experiences, right, they always report, or at least for the majority of the part, they either go straight into whatever realm they're in. Now, so from the time that happened, and you said that was 33 years ago, right? So we're talking like, what, 93, right?
Yeah.
And she died in 1991, right? So do you think that maybe in some sort of sense, when we pass on, do you believe that we have the ability or even care to want to see what our loved ones are doing alive, what they're up to? Or do you think that when we die, we don't care about Earth and we just focus on the realm that we're at? Just like now we're alive, we know about heaven, but we don't really focus it because we're in the, you see what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
And, I would say this is, I believe there are different stages of graduation to crossing in and being accepted into heaven, right? And I think as part of these different stages, we do still have a tether back to this dimension as we know it. But I think as we graduate past those stages that we lose that tether. And not so much that, we don't care about our loved ones back here, but more along the lines of, what the final outcome is now, right? And that at some point we will all be in the same graduated state that is, the kingdom of heaven. And it becomes irrelevant and more of a just hurry up and wait for that to take place.
Right. So we're always like, with that, I mean, in that kind of sense is, right? You think that we learn from like we grow as in the spiritual world, right? We don't just stay in one spot because think about it. I mean, when we're alive in this realm, we're always growing, we're learning. Yeah. So maybe that's just part of our nature too. And maybe we're multiple dimensional beings, right? Where we can travel multiple places. We could travel the past, present, and future and all that. To be like us, when we're dreaming, we're in a different state, So anyway, kind of, and to think of that, so getting into that story, so after that, you see the dress and all that, and you're laying in bed. Now, wait, what did you do the next morning? Who did you tell? Did you tell anybody?
So I actually did not say anything. So when I saw that, I very slowly pulled the covers up over my eyes to try to unsee what I saw, and said my prayers and somehow was able to go back to sleep. But when I woke up in the morning, I definitely did not tell Abuelita because she was going to be alone, and in my mind I did not want to scare her. So what I did do though is when I got home was I told Mom, right? And Mom ended up telling Abuelita. And the funny part about it is it was at that time where Abuelita did reveal that there were some things that she saw herself in the house.
And what did she say? What was the dialogue?
She said that she understood what I saw. She did not confirm if she saw the same thing, but she did say that there were things that were taking place in the house, and one of the things that she said would happen very frequently were the keys being moved. So she would put the keys, down by the front door. When she was ready to leave, she'd realize that the keys were no longer there by the front door, and they would be found somewhere out, within the house. And in some cases in a place that she had previously looked. So it's almost as if the keys were, the veil was pierced, the keys were taken into, a state of something, but not our state or dimension. and then reappeared, within our state or dimension. But yeah, that is one specifically thing.
Right.
She also did say that she would see mist. So as she was watching TV, she would see clouds or like a mist roll in. Now, I am aware that as people age, cataracts, could play a factor.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is neither her or Abuelito had cataracts,
Right.
and both of them would see it, would see kind of
Right.
that mist roll in.
Now, there was a story that you mentioned regarding to Abuelito himself, right? Because Abuelito, he didn't believe in ghosts, right? He
No.
never believed in it. So what was one of the, because there was an experience that he had, right? Well, he had two experiences, or was it one experience that he had in that house?
I know one for sure. That was physical.
Physical.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that instance, he was retired, and Abuelita would be working at the courthouse, and like clockwork, he had his schedule. He knew when she would get out of work, and he would do whatever it is he did around the house. In some cases it would be tinkering, fixing things. He was an interesting individual. My understanding is he was an electrical engineer, and so it made sense why you saw all of these electronic parts that were always just unfinished work.
Right.
Right. And so what I think he was doing was taking parts, electronic components, to try to fix one specific thing. In any case, this day I was not there, but I heard what happened, where he was just finished his lunch in the kitchen. They had a couple dogs at the time, and he was letting them outside in the back. And when he got up and opened up the slider, he said he saw what looked like a shadow of an airplane, as if an airplane, passing by, and maybe it was a sunny day outside, and you would see kind of that shadow of the airplane, on the floor, right? He saw that first, and then that was followed up very quickly after what he said, what felt like a hand to the back of his head, grabbing his head and slamming it into the sliding glass door, which led to a cut on his forehead, where I think he did get stitches. He did not get stitches. He just kind of closed it with one of those butterfly Band-Aids.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing that I heard from him of any of the ongoings in the house.
What did he think when he saw that? What was, did he become more of a believer in ghosts, or did he?
He actually never disclosed after that where he sat on that topic. It was just an event that took, in his mind, and from what I remember, it was just an event that took place, and then it just, either waiting for the next event, or he was still trying to decompose it in his mind of how it played out. But we didn't really hear anything other than that from him.
So, and I know there was another experience that that I guess Abuelita told Mom on the phone, right? About like saying, I have to call you back because I just saw something. What was that story?
Yeah, so Mom would always call Abuelita while she was bored. They would call each other to pass the time along.
Yeah.
And in one of the conversations, Abuelita stopped talking. And as Mom continued talking, she asked, hey, what's going on? What happened? Are you there? And her response was a pretty scary response. She said that, I can't tell you right now, but I can tell you tomorrow. And the next day came around, and she explained that as she was talking, a figure appeared. And that figure was well dressed in kind of like a suit. She didn't really call out what era that spirit looked to be, or what, the suit belonged to a certain era. but was more around, she knew the height because it was the same height as one of the pictures that were on the wall that she could see through the actual apparition.
Right.
So that's how she knew how tall
It was
that person was. Yeah, it was that detail.
Wow.
So
how tall was it if we put it in mathematics, this figure?
if I remember then, right, it would probably be something like right around 6 foot, 5'10" to 6 foot.
5'10" to 6
Yeah,
foot.
and clearly a male because she did call out a suit. You know,
Right.
She didn't describe any type of, you know, facial features, but more other. She was just stuck on the height.
Now, kind of comparing it to this, right? So the man in the suit, right? Like, who do you think this guy was, right? Because, I mean, this was right after Abuelito passed, right? You know, when he passed.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you believe maybe that could have been him? Was he that height? Was he 5'10"? Was he?
He was about 5'10",
5'10".
5'9", 5'10".
Right.
But if it were him, it would have been him in a younger version, because she also mentioned that, you know, he wasn't, you know, large. So our grandfather, our grandfather was rather large.
He loved pastelitos.
Pastelitos. Look, he was
snack, right?
Do not eat his M&Ms and marshmallows. I mean, this guy was all over that too stuff. We would have to sneak in the refrigerator to get M&Ms, and he knew the weight of that M&M bag. Right? We could probably grab 2 of those M&Ms, and he absolutely knew that his M&Ms were gone. So
don't touch his M&Ms.
And let me tell you,
with that.
Yeah. He drank butter like it was water. Getting back to the story, she mentioned he was a bit slender, right? But again, going back, she was adamant about the height. So if it would have been him, it would have been him in a, you know, much younger state, where obviously he was much thinner and likely before M&Ms were even a thing.
So really, and think about it too, because, right, if she brought the story up, right, she would have said, because she was very outspoken, she would have said, I saw Abuelito, which she didn't.
Yeah.
So it probably wasn't even him that she saw.
Right.
It was something else. So my question is, I mean, if it was somebody in the family, I mean, she probably would have told mom, right? Like who
she thought.
She thought it was from a relative that passed along, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
So maybe possibly whatever this thing was, it could have been maybe whoever maybe died in the house, or maybe somebody that owned the house, right? Because the house was built in the 50s.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to recall, but so that house actually had an interesting history. It was turned over, I think, 4 times before they owned it.
I did not know that. That's actually a new story.
Yeah. So there was one, the first owner, and then it got turned over 3 more times in a very frequent, you know, short window, which I found interesting. Before Abuelito and Abuelito picked that up. Yeah. Right. Yeah, you could confirm in the tax records.
First of all, I would like to tell this story. You tell that story. Because there was something about that house. Now, the only funny thing about it is you like to kind of observe, what was it about that house that might have triggered all this paranormal, right? I mean, was it probably maybe somebody did like a Ouija board or something, or maybe there was like, I mean, because it was like a cemetery or something at one time, right? So
yeah, you know, so looking back on it now, if I think about the area at the time, right? This area was, you know, home for lots of Cubans. The one thing that I will say is possibly is I know they play with the Santeria.
Yeah.
And very likely either could have been a previous homeowner who dabbled in that, or maybe somebody performed some level of Santeria curse or Santeria something, spell, right, on the family. Right. And that is the only thing that I could probably really, you know, think about that association of why this house, given that, albeit the area itself was known to be some level of Indian ground, so I possibly a culmination of those different variables that created this environment.
Right. Now, do you think that this house was haunted by any demonic entities or anything that was like just disembodied spirits of some sort? What do you think?
You know, it's a good question. I do recall a story before we were going to vacation where so when we go on vacation, our grandfather would put, time in to create these sandwiches, which had a lot of butter on them, by the way. And he would make these things out of love. He really enjoyed doing it. And he had completed that. He gave us a cooler, and we were there that night. When Mom went to go put that cooler into the van, she came back running in to the house and wringing her hands. And she mentioned that she saw this shadow that had no legs, but what looked like kind of, if you look at fingers, just kind of running like this towards her from the corner of the house.
So it was a figure of like hands, or was it?
No, it was a
just
figure, but what would look like legs would look like kind of appendages, like kind of running almost.
Interesting. Wow.
To her. When she came back wringing her hands, I remember Abuelito went and grabbed the holy water and blessed the side of the house, but also blessed the house. And in one of the rooms, it did have a burning smell after, the holy water hit it. So,
but you know what? It's very interesting because based on reading, right, and being part of like a paranormal existence, team, right? From what I've read, the burning sensation could signify demonic entity, right? Because think about it, like that burning smell, and people that have reported like something that's very demonic, they always recall a burning or a sulfur smell, right? Because think about it, I mean, this is something that's like, very like, obviously from the pits of hell, right? Of whatever this is, and hell, as it's always hot, right? But the funny thing about it is, that room, right? This was in Great Abuela's room, right? And where it happened, where she saw
it? Well, the burning smell was actually Mom's room.
Mom's wow.
Room, yeah.
Okay, that's something.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I could remember and come back and say, was it something demonic? Maybe, right? I don't know.
So now, what would you say was the most active activity that would happen in the house?
So what I could tell you is it was always at the end of the hallway.
Always at the end of the hallway?
Always at the end of the hallway in Abuela's room. It was just so creepy to walk through that.
Right.
I mean,
I always felt something there looking at you no matter
what.
Always
felt something. Yeah, in fact, another story that I have about that is as I was a little older, 13, 14 years old, like any other 13, 14-year-old teenager who's hungry for money.
Okay, now that's weird. Why is that dog barking?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Very wow, weird. That was weird.
Yeah.
There's nobody there. Okay, so go ahead.
So like any 13, 14-year-old who wanted money, my first thing was, let me mow yard. And so Abuelita offered me $25 each cut to mow the yard. And so of course I gladly accepted because, I knew at some point that, I'd be getting $25 a week for every week, mowing the yard. And I could calculate and save, hey, if I wanted anything, I would just work backwards from how many yards do I have to cut, or how many times do I have to cut her yard. What I can tell you is I was always scared to be there left alone even if it was just going to be outside. Now, this was before the days of the cell phones,
Yeah.
of course.
Like 90s.
90s,
Yeah.
right? And I remember one distinct 1 yard, 1 cut. I loaded up the lawnmower in the back of the van. That's how I would always do it. In this case, Mom dropped me off. Abuelita was not there, have no idea where she went, but I said, okay, let me cut the yard, right? And one of the things too, looking back on this, is when I would cut her backyard, there was that window that was the bathroom window in her room.
Oh, yeah.
And I would always be scared. It was a tiny backyard, right? But I was always be scared and always felt like somebody was looking at me through that window. But anyways, getting back to the story. So I had just finished the lawn, right? It started raining a little bit. And in the cases where nobody was home and I was dropped off to cut the yard, usually I would just kind of go inside very quickly, use the wired-in telephone, and call Mom and say, "Come pick me up." Close down the receiver. I tried very hard not to stare at the end of the hallway because I just felt that there was something there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't help myself, and for whatever reason, my mind told me to look. And at the end of the hallway, what I saw was, it was a blob of darkness that seemed like it was trying to collect itself.
And there was no lights on in the hall?
And there was no lights on.
It was just
no
hot.
lights on.
Wow.
So it was this blob of darkness that was collecting itself. And what I could see was, again, darker than everything else around it, but I could see air kind of moving within this blob that was darker than everything else. And that was all I needed to see to have to run out of the house. I took that chair that I had at the porch, and I put it in the middle of the corner of the yard, outside in the rain, waiting for Mom to come pick me up.
Oh my gosh.
And she asked me why I was sitting outside in the rain in basically the middle of the yard, and I had told her.
And what was her first reaction? What did she say?
By that time, there was already experiences taking place in the house, and it almost became like one of those things that you just accepted. It never kind of turned into anything other than that, right? So it's like, okay, you either accept it or you move on from it. And in this case, it was just acceptance.
So that room where Abuela's room was, where she passed away at, right? There was one story, right? Remember, Uncle Orlando was saying that he saw a little girl.
Yeah.
If you want to tell that story.
Yeah.
And then after that, right, years later, right, there was another similar experience in that room of one of our brother's, ex-girlfriends. Now, I know about the story, but you're good at telling it. So what was the story that our Uncle Orlando saw in the rooms?
Yeah.
This is going back in the 70s when they first moved in, late 77 or 78, right?
Yeah.
You said it happened.
So our mom and uncle are actually twins, born on the same day, of course, male and female. And what he told me is he was, like any day, hanging out in his room. He heard what was giggles or laughter.
Oh, wow.
And he said, okay, well, Eloisa Maria is there and she's laughing and everything else. And the laughter got louder, and in his mind, he's thinking she's home. He's thinking his own parents are home as well.
And just so you know, the laughter, right, if she's now that's Mom or Abuelita when you say Eloisa Maria, Mom, right?
Right, that's our mom.
So well, let's envision this, right? The laugh, right? How does the laugh go? Do the laugh?
Just a giggle, like a very younger girl kind of giggle,
like a like that,
kind
of thing. Yeah, go ahead.
And so it continued to get louder, and so he popped open the door to kind of, in his mind, were what he thought he was going to be, you know, screaming at his sister to shut up, so he can continue to do whatever that uncles do in the room alone.
What do you think that is, folks? Especially if you're young. Yeah. Magazines, Playboy.
Yeah. So in any case, he opens the door.
Yeah.
And what he said he saw was a apparition of a younger girl. He watched her run the opposite way down the hallway. She got into the Florida room where they had these two big pillows that were just kind of on the ground. She kind of hid in between the pillows and disappeared.
So, and that's another thing, right, is where this came from, right? And obviously, you know, what he saw there was where this little girl came from. That's another question. Now, the funny thing about it is, being as it may that it happened in this room, right? 20 years later, there would be an experience from another relative of ours, and that was, you know, her name is Sweeta. What was her experience that she pretty much said
Yeah, it was really weird.
In that same room.
So yeah,
Same bed.
Sweeta, she has a bit of a troubled family history. You know, she immigrated here from India, left her father, left her mother there, but came with her uncle. Our brother and her found each other, started dating, right? They worked at the same place,
Yeah.
Little Caesars.
Yep.
And at that time, she was looking to kind of get out on her own from underneath her uncle, as she was having some issues there. And our grandmother took her in for a couple days as we were trying to get her into, you know, a more permanent living situation that did not involve her uncle. And so in one of the nights that she was sleeping in that back bedroom, which was Abuela's old room, she said that she woke up, and when she rolled over, she saw what appeared to be somebody crouching down and hiding. I don't recall, though, if she said that it was a little girl, but definitely a figure kind of crouching down,
Like
and
how,
hiding.
How do you think the crouching looked, you think?
I think it was something more like a fetal position, in which she saw the backside, because I remember she recalled just seeing kind of the backside.
My gosh. It had a shape to it?
It had a shape, if she could see the back, you know, but as far as, and be descriptive enough to see that, you know, it was in kind of like a fetal position.
Interesting. That's really crazy. Why was it in a fetal position, you think?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd figure whatever it was, it would be standing up, hovering over the bed, but why a fetal position? Like, that's what I don't understand.
This may be something for the viewers. This may be a case for you guys to actually dig into and
what do
solve.
You think?
And just let us know.
Let us know in the comments below. Why do you think this figure was actually in a fetal position? That's what we'd like to know. So, you know, now that we kind of know about, like, you know, with that history of the house, and also the experiences that pretty much went on with it, what would you say was at least one of the last experiences that even happened in the house? Would you say the last thing you remember that you saw, you never saw ever since?
Well, let me be completely honest with you. While they have left the house has never left me.
Yeah.
The house is always still a nightmare that I have.
Right.
And the funny part about it is as I get older, I get bolder in these dreams. and confront.
Wow.
You know, whatever it is there. So
It left
till
a very
this
traumatic
day-
impact
It did.
of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Until this day, you know, every once in a while, I will have a dream of an experience in my dream with that house.
Now, what experiences do you have in these dreams? Like, you know, what are your dream stories that you've experienced? And when was the last time you had an experience? And
Yeah, I mean, the last experience was definitely at this house, right?
Oh, wow.
When I was dreaming at this house. But, you know, it's the confrontation of some type of dark energy.
you think it stayed with you? You think?
No,
or
I
is it
think,
just something
I don't know. You know, I don't know. That's a good question. I really don't know how to respond to that. I don't know. You know, I don't know. What I do know is that, at least here, I do have protection medals.
Good for you.
Yep. And, you know, I've got them in the office. I got them, you know, around the house.
You do.
So
You have them like nailed to the wall and all that stuff, or you have them like?
you'll see on the corners, you know, you'll see, you know, the rosemary and sage and things over the thresholds.
Have you had any experiences here? You know,
Thankfully, no.
Okay, good.
No.
Right. I'd like to talk about the experience you had in California. Well, how many experiences were in total that you had?
Yeah, so I would say probably the wildest experience that I had was in an apartment in Oceanside. There was the old Mission Church that was basically across the street from my apartment complex. Beautiful mission. Catholic, of course. There's a very extensive history in the Spanish trying to settle the Indians there and, you know, impose the Catholic religion onto them. And all throughout San Diego, and Southern California for that matter, you will see these relics or artifacts of Spaniards trying to settle the Indians and have the Indians kind of adopt the Catholic religion, which was, you know, the religion the Spaniards brought over. But in any case, what was really weird about this experience is the individual. We made friends with somebody who was in the Marines and his wife, and of course Denise was, you know, they became very good friends, befriended each other. I befriended the husband. We would go out, things like that. Even when we first met them, they had a very strange guy, very negative energy guy. Yeah. He'd ride a motorcycle and just a bad attitude. I guess that goes with all motorcycle riders, or they try to portray this, you know, motorcycle gang type of mentality. But in any case, he shared with me that he was into the Wiccan, if you want to call it a religion, or maybe Wiccan theory of, you know, how things work spiritually and all those things. He did talk to me about using the book, and I'm not sure what the Wiccans call this book, but my understanding of this book is kind of a book of spells.
Oh, wow.
Of dark magic. In fact, he told me that, so, you know, he was a troubled person, in and out of halfway houses. His last halfway house was, he got kicked out because, you know, the people there were uncomfortable with his religion and how he was practicing it with this specific, you know, book of spells. So he found his way into our friend's apartment out of the kind and grace of their heart to put him up for, you know, a duration of time until he was able to get back on his feet. And that's how we met him. This particular day, though, was interesting because they were not home, and he could only be in their home when they were there. Of course, they didn't trust him. So he knocked on our door. And when he knocked on our door, you know, we said, hey, I won't say his name because to me that brings dark energy. But in any case, he came into the house, and we had a cat at that time, Mouse, blue eyes, very, very cool cat, all white. And the cat started acting weird. And then the cat started really kind of looking for attention from him. And which was weird because, you know, he wasn't like that to strangers, as if he was either, you know, spellbound to react like that. And when our friends got home, we called them and said, hey, so-and-so is over here, he's going to go back over there. But that night was interesting because it was after that night where I kind of, I can't, not kind of, but I had my first experience of a sleep paralysis.
That scared me.
What I experienced in that dream was very demonic. And when I awoke, or tried to awake from that dream, I realized that my body was paralyzed, and it felt like something was sitting heavy on my chest. And I could not move. I was doing everything I can to try to scream for Denise to help. And in that case, the only thing that actually let up after was I was mentally saying prayers. And at that point, it let up. That was my experience of, you know, a sleep paralysis event. I had others in that place, in that location.
Wow. Well, I definitely really appreciate Jeff for being a guest of the show and all that stuff.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, yeah. And there'd be more in the future, you know, for you to come up, you know, on the show and all that stuff. And even friends too that you know, that would be really great.
Yeah, somehow this, you know, I think this kind of bonds us, right, as far as like friends and things. I think everybody's had some type of event that they could say, this is really weird. Either could not, or, you know, possibly put their finger on it, but absolutely, yeah. I'll be excited for the next.
Now, what I would like to do before I end this is, for example, your friend, right, he's a skeptic. Maybe we could do an episode, right?
Yeah.
We could observe what a skeptic is like versus a person that believes. You know what I mean? And be a little bit of an interesting debate trying to get into both worlds of different people.
Yep.
But anyway, everybody, I appreciate you all watching. Thank you for tuning in. And you all have a great night, okay? Take care. All right.
It was a good wrap.
That's it. Mr. President.
Yeah.
Mr. President.